So I was reflecting over the past year, and I've realized my life has actually gotten consistently better over the past year. But it got me thinking about 2 years ago when I moved across the country. I had no friends. I was in the startup phases of entrepreneurship. So I was trying to make this thing work, but I had basically no money in my bank account and I was struggling to sign any clients. And then on top of that, I had a $1,300 a month car payment because I just bought a new 4Runner, and it just felt like my back was up against the wall. So instead of trying to make friends and improve the quality of my life, I figured my best option was just to lock myself in my room until I made money. And in hindsight, that probably wasn't the best move because I ended up locking myself in my room, but instead of actually doing the work that needed to get done, I think I actually made the problem worse. I would end up just scrolling on my phone for hours on end. I wasn't talking to anyone. I had basically zero social life. And I noticed I became like awkward around people when I would get out. And overall, it just put me in a worse position. Most of my time was spent on vices like scrolling, like watching TV shows, watching YouTube, saying it was for, research or to learn, when in reality it was just comfort, and it was me drowning out the fact that I actually had hard work to do that I didn't actually want to do. And this went on for about 6 months from the time that I moved. I was basically broke, lonely, had no friends, and it didn't really feel like I was making any progress. So I was at the point where I'd failed 3 businesses, I'd switched a dozen niches, and I was just desperately trying to find a vehicle that would make me money. And to make it worse, I had just turned 19, and I kind of felt behind because from age 16 all the way up to 18, I had that goal of trying to hit 10K a month consistently by the time that I was 18. So I just turned 19. I was feeling behind, and I just felt like I hadn't really accomplished anything over the past 3 years. And it wasn't until I actually just stripped myself of all of the vices, all of the distractions that I was giving myself, that I actually realized what I'm going to teach you in this video, which is once you remove all the distractions, you realize you're actually exactly where you need to be. In my mind, I thought I was putting in all the work and I deserved to be more successful, but in reality, most of my time was spent not doing the work that I actually needed to get done, which leads me to my point of the fact that most people, they set these goals for themselves. They have these ambitions that they're trying to achieve, and most of the time, they don't actually end up following through with that. For example, me setting my goal of 10K a month, when in reality, I was falling to the level of my standards. I was allowing myself to, instead of putting in the work, scroll Instagram. And it wasn't until one day I had gotten sick. I'd been sick for about a week, and throughout the whole week, I was just in bed, and dishes were just piling up in my room. My room was already messy before I got sick, but then being sick for a week, the dishes piling up, it started to smell bad, and I reached a breaking point where I'm like, okay, I do not ever want my room to get this messy again. And that was the breaking point to where I actually learned this concept of holding yourself to a standard. After I deep cleaned my room, after I got better, I told myself I refuse to walk out of my room until I've taken all the trash out, until everything's in place, until I've done a quick scan to make sure my room is in order. And since then, my room has not gotten messy. That was about 12 months ago. So my room has stayed consistently clean every single day for 12 months, which had never happened before because I was the type to get my room clean and then it would slowly get back to dirty over a couple weeks or even a couple months. And that point is the point I'm trying to make. You fall to the level of your standards. Think about it like brushing your teeth. If you were to say, I have this goal of brushing my teeth every day, 365 days out of the year, you're probably like, no one actually says that. Most people don't even think about it. They have a standard, they shower every day, they brush their teeth every day, and they hold themselves to it. It's just their standard. So you take that concept and apply it at a larger scale. Take, for example, a millionaire, someone who's consistently making, for example, $500,000 a month. Someone who's making $500,000 a month is not going to settle for $10,000 a month. They've already proved it's possible. That's been their standard. And anything lower than that is just unacceptable. And I see this a lot on a much smaller scale. It doesn't even have to be in business. You look at things in your personal life that have a reflection on who you are as a person. Take waking up, for example. There's people who will set 5 backup alarms because they know they can't trust themselves to wake up when their alarm goes off. And that's a perfect example of just someone who has not set the standard. When you tell yourself, I will wake up when my alarm goes off, there's no negotiation. The alarm goes off, I wake up. And over time, you start building up trust with yourself. You start saying, I'm going to do something, and you actually do it. I used this analogy in another video, and I was talking about the fact that, like, if your friend says he's going to show up to the gym and he just doesn't show up that day, then tomorrow he does the exact same thing, then the next day he's still consistently late, you're going to learn not to trust that person. Well, the same thing goes for you. If you can't trust your own word, you're not actually going to be able to make any progress because you say you're going to do something, but you don't actually do it. And something that I've found to be helpful is kind of just playing it out, creating what's called like an anti-vision. So you ask yourself, if I continue to snooze my alarm, if I continue to scroll social media content, if I continue to do all these bad habits, where does that actually lead me in 2, 3, 4 years? And oftentimes, when you actually play it out, you realize, okay, I'm actually not on the right path. The standards that I'm holding myself to are way too low, and I actually need to lock in and make a change. And from experience, I found this change doesn't happen overnight. It starts with these small areas in your life that you've let the standard drop. So take something as simple as waking up. Wake up when you say you're going to do it. And just start with that. And then if you can do that for a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, okay, now you've kind of let that standard work on autopilot, and now you look at your life and see where else can I raise the standard. And I found that's a much better way to actually progress, because a lot of people, like I said, they have these massive goals, but their day-to-day life, their actions don't actually reflect it, versus someone who says, I'm not going to tolerate working anything less than 12 hours a day. I'm not going to tolerate waking up late. And over time, your standards just keep getting raised a little bit more, and eventually you look back and you've achieved tons of progress. But most of the time, it doesn't actually come from wanting something. It comes from not tolerating your current situation. And something I found interesting is the successful people who have held themselves to a higher standard, those are always the ones who are able to make change and actually have influence. You look at someone who's just unsuccessful, kind of just making it by in their day-to-day life, they're not actually able to make any change in the world because all of their energy is going to just fighting their own habits. They can't wake up on time. They can't put in the work. They're always distracting themselves. So it's always just like me, and they're not actually able to get past themselves and start doing work that's actually going to help other people, that's actually going to make a difference in the world. So if it's right now at your stage, at your current point in life, if you need to just raise the standards in your own life so you can get to the point where you can start serving others, then great. Start small. Don't try to set the standard as I'm going to make $1 million if you haven't even made $1,000 online. So be realistic with it. Look at your life and see what's one area that I can improve, and set the standard, and then just keep raising your standards over time. And you're going to look back over a year and actually see the progress. So hopefully this was helpful, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.